case only, bruv. Pro boxing fans here in London.
PBF in the building. PBF.
Here with Ade Oladipo. Ade, big fight, big event. You're here. Obviously, that means it's a huge.
No, it is a big one, right? I mean, the return of AJ is always going to be big. I mean, you cover all of these events, the small ones, the big ones, and you know the difference in media turnout for your AJs, your Furies, your Canelos. And this is no difference, man. AJ, Jermaine Franklin. I don't like the idea of the new dawn or the rebuild. I don't think it requires that. But it is good to see AJ back in the flesh alongside new trainer Derek James. Interested.
AJ's demeanour today, serious. When I looked at him at the press conference, I've been to a lot of AJ press conferences throughout the years. You know, sometimes he's smiling, he's on his phone. You know, he's generally got a smile on his face today. That wasn't the case. It was a lot more serious. Even when he spoke, he even said, listen, serious, that's all it's about going forward. What did you make of AJ today? Interesting.
I agree with you. I was speaking to my producer as AJ was talking. I was like, damn, I don't know what we're going to get out of him today, because he does look like he's in that very fiery mood. And look, maybe it's because, you know, there are a lot of doubters now with regards to AJ. Maybe it's because people seem to not be happy with him fighting Franklin. There's no belts up there, which is weird to see with an AJ fight, no belts. But I think the biggest one is pressure. AJ has to win. And not only does he have to win, Unu, he has to win, I think, by knockout. I don't think a W is enough. I think he has to get the job done here. And also, let's not forget as well, this is the guy that's lost his last 2 fights. He does 3 of his last 5. This will be his 3rd training in 3 fights. Pressure's on. Honestly, pressure is on. And he might be feeling it a little bit. He might be feeling it because normally it's the AJ show. It can end very quickly. He knows the situation. He's not 24 anymore. He's 33. 33, he's going to be 34 in October. He's got to win this one. He's got to look very, very good winning it. You get away with taking on a Franklin if you destroy a Franklin. Yeah. If you fight a Franklin and you go points or struggle like Dillian Whyte did, then you know as well as I do, and you've covered the sport longer than I have, you know what people are going to start to say. So maybe it's a bit of pressure sort of seeping in.
Counter argument is the last 2 fights he lost was against pound for pound one of the best in the world, Alexander Usyk. We know that he could have not taken that rematch, done a couple of warm-up fights, and then gone in again at some point later on, but he did, and he went in again. Is that the counter argument, though, when you, regardless of him fighting Franklin or a Zhang or a Hrgovic, that he took 2 fights back-to-back against pound for pound number 1, 2 or 3?
I'm not sure, and look, I don't want to say your viewers don't know how good Usyk is, because I'm sure it's a boxing channel, I'm sure they do. Usyk is phenomenal. Usyk is so good, it's scary. I've been lucky enough to watch him really up close. I did, I don't know if I told you this, but I did a watch along of the fight with Tony Bellew. Yeah. And me and Tony were watching it back, and just Tony was describing to me what's going on. I think Tony must have mentioned in that watch along, like, this is round 3 or 4. Tony's had good 4 rounds. Tony's like, I'm done, Ade. I'm telling you now, Ade, my gas tank is over. He's making me think too much. He's making me... I'm like, Tony, but it looks like you're doing well. He's like, bro, I'm telling you, I know I'm done. And look, Tony would tell you he's not the greatest fighter of all time, but he does that to you, Usyk. He's so good. And I think AJ's stock is going to rise a little bit when Usyk fights Fury. I'm not saying Usyk's going to beat Fury. It's a close fight. But I think people are going to watch that and think, geez, Usyk's that good? So I'm with you. AJ's fought pound for pound, number 2, number 1, back-to-back. The greatest cruiserweight we've ever seen. And if he becomes undisputed heavyweight, one of the greatest heavyweights we've ever seen. So, I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, that loss.
Jermaine Franklin, though. I'm going to talk about something I watched with someone that you know, Adam Cattrall, Nick Peace, Fight Disciples. And they made an argument for Franklin not being the fighter. They said, listen, he needs to be fighting somebody in the top 15, 20, and they said 2 names, Zhang, who's going to obviously fight Joyce now, and Hrgovic as valid opponents. People are saying Franklin's possibly, you know, like a glorified journeyman at this present time, because we've not seen much of him. He hasn't fought to this level. Obviously fought well against Dillian Whyte, didn't get the decision. A lot of people had it either way. But what do you make of the criticism that Joshua's getting fighting Franklin?
I get it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I don't get it. And I agree with Adam Cattrall and Nick Pete. I love those guys that Fight Disciples. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, they go very close to the line, but they're free and they can say what they want to say. When Franklin, I spoke with AJ. When did I sit down with AJ? I sat down with him about 4 months ago. He had DAZN, and I said, I didn't even mention Franklin as an option. I was like, could it be Hrgovic? Could it be Otto Wallin? I mentioned a few. I think I even mentioned Zhang. And I was like, yeah, I'd fight them. So when it became Franklin, I have to admit, I was like, where did Franklin come from? And again, I think there's almost a tug of war here. There is who his team want him to fight, and there's who AJ would fight. No one's going to tell me, and people might say you're only saying it's Ade because you're an AJ fan, but no one's going to tell me AJ wouldn't fight Joyce, Zhang, Hrgovic. I do feel like the team are like, okay, let's, again, new dawn, let's rebuild him. Doesn't need rebuilding. So there is a bit of a tug of war. So I agree with Adam Cattrall and Nick Peet. It should have been Hrgovic. You know what? I saw Hrgovic against Zhang. Hrgovic has been built as this killer. It's a good fight. He's not that killer. I'd have AJ beating him. I'd have AJ beating Zhang. So, yeah, maybe these are the fights that we see in the summer, hopefully.
I think you're right there. Knowing, obviously, of Anthony Joshua, you've known him a long time. He's a fighter. He'll fight everyone. But we're in this state where he's number 1, 2 or 3 in the division at the time. You've got a team. People like Eddie Hearn, people like his corporate team.
Of course, 258 management, Freddie Cunningham.
They don't want to be pushing him into a Fury fight. It's not AJ's fault. Like, probably in the back of his mind, like he wanted that Fury fight. There was discussions for it anyway. So we've got to differentiate between what AJ as a fighter wants and what his team wants.
I don't think people can sometimes. I think people almost put it as one collective. And look, to be fair, he's the captain of the ship. So to be fair, he should have the last say, but I do think there is a difference in terms of, okay, this is what makes sense now as opposed to what you want. Let's start with this first and then let's see. But look, we've been promised 3 fights this year. If we get the 3 fights, then I don't think people have too much of a problem when they look back and say, okay, but he fought Franklin. Yeah, but he fought White or Hrgovic, and then he's going to fight Joe Joyce next, so we'll accept that. But look, I don't have much problem with him having and look, Franklin's not a gimme, but I don't mind him having this because, again, the last 2 fights have been Usyk. You know what I mean? I hate comparing, but I mean, Wilder came back and fought Helenius. I mean, Helenius is a bit above Franklin, but Helenius. Fury, after fighting Deontay Wilder, when I thought he beat him in the draw, his next fight was Tom Schwartz. You know what I mean? Fury just recently fought Chisora. I mean, let's not pretend that everyone's fighting killers. I think the only person that's out there fighting killers is probably Joe Joyce. No one else is. So, yeah, he can have this one. I'll give him this. I'm not over the moon, but I'll give him it.
Talking about his link up with Derek James, a lot of people are saying, look, Derek James is a throwback trainer. He's going to get AJ to become that old AJ, ruthless. You know, the one that we saw in the first 15 fights leading up to him becoming a world champion. Throughout that period, though, after them fights of him becoming a world champion, he's been knocked down. There's things that sort of demons that play in your head after you've been knocked down, knocked out, whatever else, Andy Ruiz fight, Klitschko fight, so forth. Do you think, from what AJ has done in the last 5-7 fights, that we can see that old AJ again, or does it have to be adaptation in this part of his career?
A bit of adaptation. I think as you go higher levels, as the fights get a bit riskier, you have to adapt. You can't be silly and gun-ho. Not in the heavyweight division, anyone can get clipped. But I think AJ needs to look at someone like a Jamel Charlo. Jamel Charlo lost to Tony Harrison under Derek James, came back and, aggressive. No reverse. Jamel Charlo didn't look good against Brian Castano. I mean, that draw that I thought he lost, came back and got his belt. So I think he'll learn from that. And being in that camp, you rub off Jamel Charlo, you rub off Frank Martin, you rub off Errol Spence. There'll be young kids in that camp, because those are the superstars. There'll be young kids like 1-0, 2-0 that want to test them a little bit. Oh, you're the former unified heavyweight champ. Can I get a few rounds, champ? And I think he'll learn and grow from that. So I think he's in a good environment. I was around him a few times in Sheffield. It's perfect. It's so clean. You can almost eat your food off the floor. Sometimes you need a bit of grit. And I feel like being in America, I've never been to Derek James' gym, but it'll be more gritty than Sheffield, I'm telling you now. So being around that, I think is a good thing. So I don't think he needs to change or adapt his style or anything. I just think that Derek James will add to what Robert Garcia added to and what Rob McCracken added to, and hopefully you get those 3 minds in his head. Hopefully we can get a really good AJ.
What about the other argument where trainers are coming out saying you can't keep blaming a trainer? Every time something's gone wrong, I'm not saying AJ does this. I'm just saying that from the outside it seems that when something goes wrong, there's a change of trainer. He hasn't done that. He didn't do that with Rob McCracken. He stuck with him for a long time. Yeah. But there is that argument. What do you say in regards to that?
I'd say sometimes you just need a new voice. I was disappointed they left Robert Garcia. Clearly there's a reason, and I don't know if it's a training reason, because I thought AJ looked good against Usyk. But I mean, people leave. I mean, Lawrence Okoye's unbeaten under Shane McGuigan. He's decided to go to Sugar Hill Stewart for no reason. I was like, what? You look good under Shane. Why have you gone to Sugar? People want a new voice, want to try new things. And AJ, at this stage of his career, at 33, is probably thinking, one more roll of the dice with someone new, someone fresh. Let's see what I can do. Let me see. Let me get the trainer. It's not like he's gone to a scrub. Let me get the trainer of the year. And let's see if that trainer of the year can add something to what I've got already. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I would have preferred him to stay with Robert. Not because I'm not a fan of Derek. I think Derek's probably a better trainer than Robert. But I feel like it takes about 3 or 4 fight camps to get in sync with a trainer. And this would have been his second fight camp with Robert. And look, Robert had Usyk to prepare for. No disrespect. Derek's got Franklin to prepare for. Who had the hardest task? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it would have been good to see what Robert could have done with Jermaine Franklin. And then would have been moving on. And then you get to a winter fight against a Joyce or someone, and all of a sudden AJ's had 4 fight camps with Robert Garcia. It's going to look amazing. So I'm only upset that he didn't stay with Robert because of that.
Last couple from myself, rematch clauses. Detrimental to the sport. We're seeing what's going on with the whole Gervonta Tank and Ryan Garcia. The argument there is that even though it's going to be on short time initially, even if Ryan Garcia wins, it's still going to be on short time. They're obviously arguing it, but regardless of that situation, rematch clauses. Give me your thought. I asked Ben Shalom the same thing yesterday, and he gave me his thoughts. Give me your thoughts on these.
Hate them. I honestly, I can't stand them. If a fight's such a good fight fans will determine whether or not it deserves a rematch. We will say, nah, rematch. We said it with Josh Taylor, Jack Catterall. We will say, oh my God, I want to see it again. I can't understand why they have to be put in. Like the fear, I don't understand it. And it's good that you mentioned the Tank Ryan thing. Ryan's a big star for DAZN. They've spent a lot of money on him, right? He gets paid, I'm guessing, millions. They've said, okay, you know what? Go to Showtime and have the fight. I think it's crazy, but they've said that. Are you telling me the rematch can't be on DAZN? So what? DAZN is saying, go over there, have that one. I don't know who's the biggest star, Gervonta and Ryan. I think that, Gervonta's pay-per-views aren't 1 million, 200,000. I think his last fight did. So one over there, one over there. What's the problem? But no, I'm honestly, I can't stand rematch clauses. The only one where I'm surprised there wasn't a rematch clause was Baumgardner Meyer. I'm surprised about that, but no, I can't stand them. I don't know if they've always been a thing in the sport and we just didn't realise, but they need to be scrapped because it holds up divisions as well. You've got kids that are waiting, that have done their mandatories, done their voluntaries, I'm waiting, a rematch. And nowadays, let's be honest, fighters fight twice a year. So whilst you're waiting for a rematch, you've been out for a year, it's a joke, they need to be scrapped. I say one of the worst things, there's others, but one of the worst things about boxing is rematch clauses. Disgraceful, disgusting, despicable.
I agree. It's held up a lot of fights in the past, like you've said. Let's move on quickly. You spoke about the big problem in the heavyweight division in Joyce. Fighting another big man from China in Zhang. Talk to me about that one. Not an easy one for Joe there.
Mate, I have to admit, I was surprised about Zhang versus Hrgovic. I was like, 1 second, what's going on here? Hrgovic was considered to be Ivan Drago and Zhang was going to get bowled over. All of a sudden, he's knocking Hrgovic all over the place. I'm like, 1 second, this isn't part of the script. He won that fight. Yeah. He won that fight. So let's kind of play it 2 ways. He's coming off beating Hrgovic to fight Joyce. As far as I'm concerned, that means Zhang's the top 10 heavyweight. So this is a great fight, but it's a style made perfect for Joe. I think Joyce is a slow heavyweight. Zhang's slower. Joe can do everything better than Zhang. He hits harder, he's got a better gas tank, and I think he's a better boxer. I think it's going to be a 5-round slugfest, but I expect Joyce to knock him out because right now Joyce is the boogeyman of the heavyweight. Like he's almost like Golovkin 10 years ago. He is the boogeyman. But Joyce will get the job done. But it's a fun fight. It really is.
How much of a problem is Joyce to that division?
Frightening. I don't get it. I don't understand the chin. I don't get the gas tank. He's got bigger. Physically, he's got bigger. I remember looking at his first couple of pro fights. He wasn't as big. Now he looks physically big. He's obviously doing really good stuff with Ismail Salas in the States. Did you see my tweet, by the way, about how many British fighters have American trainers now? British fighters. Like, what the hell? But look, Joe's a big problem. No one wants to fight him. No one really. The risk reward is horrible. If he was a pay-per-view fighter, you'd want to fight him because of the money. He's not. He doesn't put that many bums in seats. The copper boxes where he's fighting Zhang, which is 7,000. So why fight him? Nah, mate, he's scary. He's George Foreman of 2023, and frightening, but bigger than George.
Talking about your tweet, American trainers, British fighters, it is crazy, but Andy Lee responded back to that. That was quite interesting. Just for the people that haven't seen that tweet, what did Andy Lee sort of sum up and give the answer to?
Yeah, so basically I tweeted and said that why so many of our top fighters fighting, sort of hiring American trainers, and there's a list of I think 10 I tweeted, and Andy Lee said because it's almost the perfect recipe. So you've got the hard-working ethics of European fighters and the kind of skill set of American trainers, and it's a good. And I get it, but it still does surprise me because you don't get any American fighters, not one. Say, I'm going to be going train with Shane or McNally or Dave Calder, none of them. So it does surprise me how so many, and look, I mean, Tyson Fury, AJ, Okoli, Buatsi, who else? Dan Aziz, Joe Joyce of Ishmael Sadas, based in America, Dillian White. I mean, we're talking Eubank. It's elite top fighters have all said, you know what? Yeah, I don't really fancy the British trainers. I'm going to America. I find it strange.
Final one for myself. I know Eddie sat there, but Conor Benn is looking to make a return.
I love the way you said Eddie sat there like, I'm going to have fear of saying it because I'm going to say what I want to say.
Because obviously he's named a opponent that when he named him, I was like, okay, that's interesting. Manny Pacquiao.
No. What are we doing? Manny, like, what are we doing? Let's fight Pac-Man. You know, the thing is, it makes me laugh at Eddie, yeah? And Eddie's been doing this for years. Eddie will say 4 names and chuck in a random name, and you know that means the random name guy is going to... They'll say, I want Errol, I want Terrence, and we want Manny. Like, Manny? Where's that come from? But no, not for me. Not at all. Echo Usman. British fight, right? Because we still don't know if Conor Benn is above British level. We don't know. We don't know that. Echo Usman is just... You know, beat Chris Congo. He's the British champion. He's got like an IBF international type belt. I think he's the Commonwealth champion as well. Give him that fight and let Conor run through him. Then we're like, oh, okay, well then the European champion next. I want to see that.
Even Josh Kelly called him out on Twitter as well.
Josh Kelly, 154 in it, but then again he was going to go 157 for, yeah. But Josh Kelly, risky boy. Josh Kelly looked good against Troy Williamson. He's risky. But Echo Usman deserves a big fight, and I think that's a perfect comeback fight, and I think it's even rude to call it a comeback fight, but it's a perfect fight, I think, for Conor Benn. That should be the one that I think Conor Benn has next.
Cool. Ade, I've taken up more than the 5 minutes.
How many?
17.
Jeez, I'm sending them to PDF.
Ade Oladipo, listen, it's only because I've known you for a long time that we can do all the time.
Anytime, of course.
Thank you very much for talking to myself and pro boxing fans, and we'll speak to you soon, man.